Hello. Welcome back to the Taylor Swift podcast, where we talk about all of Taylor Swift's discography. My name is Kylan Hillman, a.k.a. Mangophonica, a.k.a. that guy with the sweaters.
And I'm Madison Pfeiffer.
We are the co-owners of Phonica Media, and we're going to talk all about the rest of the Taylor Swift discography. We did our Fearless one, and we finally got around to doing Speak Now.
Alright, so first, before we dig into this, I think we need to address the ticket gate and what went down with all of that. So, I figure that most people who are listening to this already know about the ticket debacle, but some quick background. Taylor has not been on tour in several years because of COVID. In fact, her last tour, which would have been for the Lover album, was canceled. And then she, of course, went on to release Folklore and Evermore and Midnights. And she has announced that she will be doing a tour called the Eras Tour. So it won't focus specifically on any one album. It seems like she's going to be performing music from her entire career. Obviously, a lot of people were super excited because she hadn't toured in so long. She's released a lot of new stuff. And also just in general, I think Taylor Swift is a very popular artist. I think all of her tours are usually sold out and, tickets are sometimes difficult to get, which then when the pre-sale was enacted, you could use that code to procure tickets. If you did not get a code, then you would have to wait for the general ticket sale to happen later in the week. There was devised this plan that...
But they deviated from.
They deviated from. That's a better... They devised a plan that they deviated from. And they essentially, if you downloaded her album, to apply, you had to submit a request to get access to a pre-sale. Prices her concerts very reasonably. And this was Ticketmaster's solution.
The stated goal of the codes were, why were they...
The stated goal of the codes was to prevent bots and scammers and ticket scalpers from just having who had these extra little boosts, who had bought merch, who got albums, who had previous tickets to Loverfest. Some of them still did not get codes. The idea being that, bots are probably going to attack the sale, as they do with many big tours, but especially because Taylor Swift is such a hot ticket right now.
People trying to be on one site at the same time.
Yes, because another important note, they released all of the tickets for the East Coast at one time, and all of the tickets for the West Coast a few hours later. So everyone who's trying to get tickets for Philly, New York, everywhere from Maine to Florida would have been trying to access this website at the same time.
Yeah.
I was pretty nervous because I figured a lot of other people were probably not having that problem and got to stay in their place in line. I stayed in line for about 2 hours. Eventually, I had my first little movement. It finally dropped down from 2,000 plus to 1,999. And so I waited for a little bit longer, dropped down a little further, and then at that point, the queue froze. It stopped. They weren't pushing anyone else through. Come to find out, a huge subset of people who had the pre-codes, their codes weren't working through no fault of their own. The codes just did not work. So Ticketmaster froze all of the queues, delayed the West Coast queue, so theirs didn't even start, while they reactivated all of the codes. That took about 4 hours. I was in the queue for about 4 hours without it moving. Once it restarted, I got booted out again, and I had to get back at the end of the line. Waited my turn. Finally, to begin with, an hour after that, I got to my place in the line. It was my turn. Tickets. I jumped in. I put the first tickets I saw in my cart. I clicked checked out. And before I could even get to the checkout, it said Friday at the general admission, general ticket sale. And I clicked the next pair of tickets. kicked me out again. Next bear. And by the time that happened maybe like 8 times, I knew I was just not going to get tickets. And then eventually it just stopped showing me any tickets altogether. The entire stadium was grayed out. Everyone just kind of, was super disappointed. Everyone's tweeting angrily at Taylor, angrily at Ticketmaster. People are starting to call out the fact that Ticketmaster is a monopoly and that they have no competitors, and therefore they don't have to keep their standards high. They're calling out the fact that Ticketmaster actually, at this point, tickets were already starting to appear on resale sites, indicating that it wasn't just fans who had pre-codes and who were able to buy tickets, because these tickets were now on resale sites for 10 times what they were paid.
To not have bots come in.
We saw tickets for up to like $90,000 for just regular old stadium tickets. Yeah.
So like, even if it's not bots and it's like human scalpers, they're gonna be able to get in, buy tickets, and then flip them.
Right, which also indicates that like the next day, so if you had that credit card, you could potentially sign in for the second presale. So we got that credit card all set up and ready to log in. That out of the water a little bit, because that means that like these line multiple times while I'm waiting, finally make it through to buy tickets, put some in my cart. They disappear before I can even click checkout. And we're talking like milliseconds. Like, I put them in my cart and immediately click checkout, and they're already gone. And they also clearly did not attempt to...
The Lover tickets, because you actually had tickets for the Lover Tour.
Loverfest, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it seemed that kind of makes sense because it would be in their system already, but like, the idea that you would get preferential treatment by buying merch, I don't even know how Ticketmaster specifically would track that. That seemed like just a way to get people to buy more merch.
Problematic. Eventually, yeah.
I
don't know. Master did end up righting the wrong to a degree for some people, not everyone.
So bad.
About a month later, a few weeks later.
Monopoly in the first place.
Opportunity to certain people who had a pre-sale code but did not actually have tickets.
3 or 4 times, something like that?
Oh, I would say during the entire duration of during the original pre-sale and the credit card pre-sale, I was booted out maybe a cumulative like 10 times.
Yeah, so you were kicked off the site a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. And that's even worse.
You were comfortable with. You didn't get to pick seat location or city or anything.
About how many people were going to buy tickets.
Yes. So here's the thing. Ticketmaster, in response to all this negativity, said we had unprecedented demand. They kept using the word unexpected and unprecedented. We're comfortable paying. We did get tickets that way. How many people were going to be logging in?
Because they had to give out a bunch of codes.
They had to give out codes. And not only that, when you applied for a code, you had to list which cities you were interested in, and your code only applied to a specific city. So they even knew exactly where, basically, if you didn't have a pre-sale code, there was absolutely no chance you were going to get a ticket. And even if you got a pre-sale code, the chances still weren't great that you were going to get a ticket. Possibly claim that this was unprecedented and unexpected. In the American government potentially investigating this monopoly. I think there's currently a session open right now where legislators are discussing this topic, what needs to be done with Ticketmaster, possible solutions. It's been memeified. A lot of these representatives are using Taylor Swift lyrics in their depositions.
They're referring to Swifties?
There's actual reference to Swifties in federal documents now, recorded for eternity.
I guess just a last note, there have been, for as many people who have been really rightfully upset about what happened with Ticketmaster, there have also been people who are complaining about not getting Taylor Swift tickets. People saying like, oh, who even cares about going to see Taylor Swift? Oh, why are we complaining about this so much? It's one artist, it doesn't matter. To those people, I just want to say, this is why it matters. It's not necessarily that it's Taylor Swift, it's that Ticketmaster has a monopoly, and we're supposed to not have monopolies.
Yes, they have financial incentive to do poor business practices. They made a claim that they were going to provide a certain service. They did not provide it, and there was no competitor to swoop in and provide that service instead. It was Ticketmaster or bust. So that's why this situation is the way that it is. In fact, Ticketmaster actually financially benefited from not providing that service.
Right.
And it was clear that they were not really interested in finding a solution. Even their public statement that they made when they announced that they would be releasing a few leftover tickets to that other subset of people. It was clear that they had written that because they were under the gun by Taylor Swift's lawyers.
Yeah.
I think they specifically mentioned that Taylor had requested that they do this. So, they had no stake in the game in terms of providing good business practices. And now they're kind of feeling that repercussion.
Right. I also want to say that I don't want to get too preachy about it, but for people who had or have more tickets than they need, we knew a few people who were looking to flip their tickets for a profit. Please don't do that.
That's just bad.
That's just
like being a bad person.
That's just like being bad. Just sell them to somebody for a reasonable price who needs them.
For the price you paid. Don't try and make a profit off of someone who genuinely enjoys this artist and wants this experience. It feels very much like you're just after this thing because it's valuable and you feel like you won the lottery and not because it's actually the right thing to do. I don't know. It's a little schemy.
Yes. It's very villainesque.
Yeah.
To do that. And for anybody who was not able to get tickets, I'm just really sorry. And you deserve to get them. And what happened really, really sucks.
I'm holding out hope that Ticketmaster, either through their own accord or by the guide of legal entities, is forced to identify bots and release the tickets that the bots currently hold.
That would be great. Also, Taylor obviously loves her fans. There is something that she can do, and that's just do more shows, which it seems like she wants to do that.
Yeah, she's added on... She initially released her tour schedule, and then she added on additional tours, I think, for almost every city. Philly has three or four shows.
Yeah.
There are a lot. I mean, she is so jam-packed. I don't think that she could fit anything additional into what she has now.
Right.
But she could extend it.
I think, that's probably very exhausting for her, and it's a lot of work. I guess if it were me, she has some sort of, I think, responsibility for being an artist as big as she is, but I also think, maybe if she just does one tour every, 4 or 5 years.
I'm going to give two impressions, given that I originally heard this and this was first released as a young...
She's one of the only artists that could do that.
Yeah. I think that she should build an East Coast and a West Coast stadium.
Yeah, that. Yeah. I actually didn't listen to the album when I was young. I only heard the singles on the radio. But go on.
So, when I first heard it, I loved it. There was no other artist really like Taylor at the time, at least not for, teenagers, teen girls specifically. I don't think the boys were really into her. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that this was Fearless Part 2. I thought this was the hot new thing. I was super into it. There were, of course, songs that I wasn't a huge fan of. But I think overall I had very positive feelings of Speak Now.
That's a nice purple dress on the cover.
It's an amazing purple dress. Did you know that cover is not actually a photo? It is a painting.
What?
Zoom in on her arm. You can see the brush strokes.
I'd rather it didn't, but okay. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. So, now...
Their story.
There's a little preamble.
There's a preamble.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Hearing it on and off. Of course, me listening to it more recently in preparation for this podcast.
About the Kanye shit.
Yes.
Which is also timely because Kanye recently, basically came out as a Nazi.
Yeah. Just is kind of... I think it's her weakest album, in my opinion. I think Fearless was better. I saw it kind of as a sister album to Speak Now, but kind of like the cooler, better older sister.
Yeah.
And then it just...
Will return again and again.
Yeah, he keeps intersecting.
Yes.
In various ways. So this is merely his first introduction.
It is almost like an entirely different thing.
Yes.
So I would say if you want the early Taylor experience...
Was hot off of her Fearless album.
Which was a banger.
Yep. She had a delightful music video, You Belong With Me.
Will give you that sense of Taylor Swift nostalgia that you're probably looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Where she was winning Best Female Video for You Belong With Me. Songs on there that hold a lot of sentimental value. There's some songs on there that I do genuinely think are good. But as an album, not my favorite.
Now, do you think that
Gets up on stage and interrupts her, grabs the mic. Well, here's what I'll say. People who heard it and enjoyed it when it was first released, I gotta say something, still hold a lot of sentimental value to it and probably still think of it that way. I think that there's some people who didn't like it from the start.
Which, I mean, okay, like, it's a great video.
I think people who were a little bit older, maybe a little more mature, probably didn't love it. This album did pretty well critically. Won a bunch of awards. He flips off the crowd. He gives the mic back to Taylor. She stands there looking a little dumbfounded and confused.
Right.
Not sure what was happening. She later revealed in her Miss Americana...
Not necessarily the sophomore release, like it doesn't have to be the second album, even though this is the third one. I didn't forget.
Looking back on this, you can kind of understand, more of what was happening for her on stage in that moment.
That's pretty traumatic.
Yeah. Her first, big thing, really. I mean, she had won other awards, but this was, a big deal. She said, in an interview, exiting the award show, she said that she had never met Kanye before. She was a fan. She didn't know him until now. That was, their first time meeting. Was him interrupting her on stage to call up someone else's music video. By the way, Beyonce handled it very gracefully. She clearly looked upset and disappointed and embarrassed that Kanye had done that. Later on, she ended up winning an award, and she called Taylor back up to the stage to finish her acceptance speech. So I think Beyonce...
Awards because people actually knew who she was now, whereas when Fearless first released, maybe they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, one of the criticisms that I think she got was that the album was a little heartbreaky, whiny, revengey, melodramatic, teen angst. It definitely... I think that Fearless is kind of...
feeds some part of his soul.
Yeah.
I think he, survives off of people hating him.
Yeah, probably.
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And this one is too, but in kind of a different way.
And then this album is kind of life sucks. Being an adult is terrible.
Yeah, there's a lot of darkness on this one.
I am heartbroken and everything is bad. And it just kind of, just learned that her song Innocent off of Speak Now was actually written about Kanye and about her forgiving him.
Not deserved.
No.
Maybe that's why Innocent isn't an amazing song.
Yeah. Not an amazing song on multiple levels.
Yeah.
As we go through some of these other albums, more Kanye lore will come up. That was not his final.
Mm-hmm. But that's about it. There's no mandolin. There's not an idea of what the next Kanye entry will be.
So that would probably be around maybe...
That's the thing, though. They got replaced by these really stupid dramatic strings.
Yeah. Album.
You made an observation. Do you want to say what you thought about the strings?
Yeah, so my thought is she is a superstar Taylor. She's got a lot of money now. She's probably recording in a big Sony studio somewhere. She's got a million producers and musicians, and she's got big band money, and she can just hire an orchestra to play for her now.
Right, and I think that, assuming that's the thought process, it only really serves to make the album feel completely overwrought and contrived.
Yeah.
You know, like, it doesn't really add to the emotions, it just makes it feel really over the top. And I think that's really what does this album in, is that it takes itself way too seriously, and it's way too dramatic.
Yes. I wonder if some of that is intentional, because I think Fearless got some criticism that she was kind of that Taylor's a little phony, because she was credited as a writer on many of the songs.
Mm-hmm.
But she did have some writing support on Fearless, and I think people were under the impression that, yeah, she's a good writer, but she got all this help. You know, like, maybe there's potential there, but she's very young and she doesn't know a whole lot. They weren't sure. The general public, some critics weren't quite sure what they felt about her writing chops. And I think part of the reason why Taylor wrote Speak Now entirely on her own is to kind of prove that, and prove that she could be a serious, mature writer, and she could write about hard stuff. She can write about heartbreak, not everything's super saturated and sweet and like love story. I think that a lot of it, you know, she does mention that part of the reason why she wrote it herself is because she was writing it while she was on tour, and
right.
Writers weren't always readily available. But I do think there's something to be said for wanting to kind of bite back at some of the critics who claim that she didn't have it all when it came to her writing prowess, and that maybe this was a little bit of an over-the-top attempt to be like, yes, I can do this. Listen to all of this heartbreak.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, also, like, Fearless was not just sweetness. Like, there was also heartbreak on that, but it, a lot of the times, just does it in a much more interesting and nuanced way that I think Speak Now misses. And I think that while Fearless comes off to me as very vulnerable, Speak Now comes off as, like, whiny. The other thing that's worth noting as a general comment is that this one is, like, weirdly more of a country album than Fearless. And I say weirdly because you know where she's going. She's going to release Red, and that's going to have singles on it that have nothing to do with country. And so it's strange to me that this one has songs like Mean, which are, like, just a country song. There's also, like, even just the first song in the first single, Mine, actually feels like a country song where, like, really none of the singles off of Fearless felt like true, quote-unquote, country songs. Like, that was part of the thing that she got as backlash from people, is that she couldn't really exist in the country scene or the pop scene.
There was some, she doesn't belong here, she doesn't belong there, she belongs to pop, she belongs to country, neither of us want her, both of us want her. It was a weird, like, tug-of-war situation.
And I'm not sure if having more country stuff on here was necessarily a reaction to that, but maybe it's worth keeping in mind. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Alright, so let's talk about individual tracks. What do we think of Mine?
I like Mine. I liked it when I first heard it. I still like it now, but I don't love it as much as I love other Taylor songs. While it gets a good rating in the realm of Speak Now, it might not necessarily get a good rating in the realm of her entire discography.
So what for you keeps it from being everything that it could be? It
feels a little, like, oversimplified, and, like, a little, like, everything is, like, just gonna turn out fine, and
yeah.
I don't know. It's just something, it's lyrical. It's not musical for me.
Yeah, it feels, I think maybe what you're saying is that it feels optimistic in kind of a cheesy, phony way.
Yes, that's a much better way of saying it. There was a lot of optimism on Fearless. I didn't necessarily feel that it was cheesy in every one of those instances.
I think this one
does feel cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one feels kind of like Love Story in a way. Love Story was optimistic, but it had this entire context backing it up that was really clever. Mm-hmm. And Mine is just like, it's kind of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will say it has a nice melody, like it is a catchy hook. It's easy to get stuck in your head. But it doesn't feel musically very substantial.
Yeah. Can we address the fact that she says water really strangely on that song?
Oh yeah, can you remind me, how does she say water?
She says it like water. Like
Yeah.
she makes a really wide mouth shape.
Yeah, and that's part of the weird country shit, right? Because she's...
Yeah, but like she did it more in Fearless. She still does it here in Speak Now. And it's just weird because she did not spend her formative years in an area where they have that accent.
Yeah.
Nor did she speak like that in interviews or in real life today.
Yeah. Another weird thing about her voice, a couple comments, I think one of them we'll get to later, but she just, like, sings really bright, nasal, and edgy a lot of the time. She's got, like, two modes of singing. It's either very soft and airy, or it's very, like, hard and belty. And there's no in between. And that is interesting to me because I would say what characterizes Taylor's singing now and that I like about it is that she's more chill.
Mm-hmm.
And her voice has a little more color to it, and it has more dynamics. Which, you know, maybe that's just from being young. She was, like, 20. We were saying, like, you know, her last release, how old was she when she was, like, recording Midnights? Do you know?
31 or 32.
Yeah, so 31 or 32, so her voice is, like, probably mostly done developing into, you know, a full-grown woman's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's bound to become richer. And you can kind of hear that going back to the Taylor's version stuff. I just find it interesting that she sings so bright.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that has to also do with trying to fit in with a more country style.
Yes.
Because she wants to sing really twangy and say water.
Yeah.
Then there's Back to December. Back to December, at first I had in my notes that Back to December is painfully mid. But I think that you feel more positively about it, so can you go first?
I enjoy Back to December. I think it is a little sad and sappy in the way that I want it to be.
Yeah.
I think the song just works on that level. I think there's a lot of, like, kind of sad, sappy songs on this album that don't work, but I think this one takes the cake.
A lot of the songs, especially the ballads in this one, feel like they should be in, like, a movie soundtrack for some, like, rom-com.
Yes.
I was making that observation earlier, and it really does strike me that you could probably make a compelling film soundtrack out of this entire album.
And I think a couple of them did appear in rom-coms.
Do you remember which ones?
I'm pretty sure Enchanted was in Valentine's Day, which Taylor Swift herself appears in.
Right.
There's maturity there. You can tell that she's grown. She's seen some shit.
Yeah.
She's
speaking truth to power.
She's speaking from her heart.
Yes.
She will not be silenced.
In fact, this one could have been a little more dramatic, and I probably would have just accepted it.
Yes.
But weirdly enough, the music of it is not that dramatic.
No, she relies heavily on her vocals.
Yeah, it's kind of mellow.
Mm-hmm.
It relies heavily on the vocals and the lyrics.
We were saying in the car when we were listening to this that it feels like she's kind of, like, half singing at times, like she's mostly just, like, kind of whimpering to herself about this thing that she experienced.
Yeah, you said in particular the melody in the beginning of the verse kind of sounds like she's just, like, talking.
It sounds a little lazy, but in a way that works.
Yeah.
Like, intentionally lazy.
Right.
Casual, maybe.
Very casual, yeah. Right. Like, she's just telling a story.
Yeah. She's just chatting to a friend.
Another really good one is Speak Now. Speak Now, I think, mostly...
depth and more complexity in the plot of some of these things that she is writing.
I think it's good. It reminds me of Shrek.
There's definitely a lot of introspection here.
Which is... It's funny that she struggled with that early on, because now she's too introspective.
Now it's entirely introspection.
It's all introspection, baby!
That's all Midnights was.
Yeah, Midnights is entirely introspective, which is really funny. But yeah, Back to December, I just feel first to the chorus. I think it carries over very well thematically. I think it's all cohesive. And it's also just, like, a really musically nice break from all the melodrama, because it's just, like, nice and boppy.
Yeah.
It's very bouncy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can dance to it.
You can have a good little bop.
You can have yourself a little bop.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. It's just gray.
It's for me. It is dreary, but in a way that I want it to be, and not in a gray way.
Sure, that's fun. It's probably the first synth of her career.
Yeah.
So far.
Enchanted, I just learned, was going to be the title of the whole album, and then her team decided that was not the move because it sounded too fairy tale-y, and they wanted to move away from fairy tales and what they did in Fearless with the fairy tale kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they sent her back to the drawing board, and she said, well, then I'm picking Speak now because I'm speaking my truth.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't know that now.
I'm sorry.
But what I will say about Enchanted is that Enchanted is a bop and it's really well written. It has what all pop songs should aspire to have, which it has 2 hooks. There's a hook in the pre-chorus. I was enchanted to meet you. And it has a hook in the chorus. This da da da.
The classic double hook.
Yeah, it's got the double hook.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a double hook?
Who doesn't love a double hook? It also rocks. It's another one that rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And but in that kind of like said during his review of Antihero that she said in Mean eventually she'd be big enough so you can't hurt me. Up and down like chicken wings.
You're wearing a lot of bracelets.
There's like tons of bracelets on your wrist.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like it could be in Zoe 101.
Yes.
In a way that I completely love.
Yes. It's perfect.
Yes. I did not like Enchanted when I first heard it, and I think it like very quickly won me over.
Yeah. As it should have. Let's talk about Better Than Revenge.
Oh, yeah.
So
unfortunate.
Better Than Revenge was a song that I first heard and loved. I thought it was so gritty and hard and mean and ha-ha, I will get you.
Speaks to the fact that, like, it's very obvious she can't handle it.
Right. These lyrics are problematic. Some of these are a little, not great.
Yeah.
A little slut-shamey, maybe.
If you're gonna have a song that's super slut-shamey, it needs to at least be as good as Misery Business. And this one is not.
No, I think musically it's fine. It definitely has, like, a good little beat to it. But
a lot of this album actually features a lot of rock.
Yes.
Which is interesting because it features more kind of hard rock than Fearless does. Sort of a theme in the beginning of her career that she's kind of a goody two-shoes and she is sort of slut-shamey.
Yeah, so she made an intentional decision early on in her career that she was going to be not reliant on sexualizing herself or her songs or her music videos. She just wasn't going to do that. That was for other artists and not for her.
The only thing that I don't like about the song is the lyrics.
Yeah. Which, her image problems that she had later on when she was seen out on the town with a bunch of different fellas, because even though she wasn't doing anything that was unusual for a 20-something young woman, people had these preconceived notions that she was, maybe a prude, maybe like a super Christian, people didn't really know, blonde hair, blue eye, perfect little angel, shouldn't be out at night with boys kind of situation.
Yes.
She does a little pop-in that sounds like a recording, like a cheap
recording I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's kind of that, like, radio effect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that the first time that she's done something like that to her voice?
I think it is, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. The thing that I think is the weakest about the lyrics, though, is...
She needs to be overly sexualized in any kind of way. I still don't think she really does that. Even to this day, she doesn't have super sexual lyrics.
Is actually utilized well in the song. It has kind of nothing to do with the rest of the lyrics of the song. Correct. Which is weird because... And, I think it kind of shows her immaturity as a songwriter just because... Now, if she has a framing device, that's all the song is about. Like, one of the best examples I could think of right now is Bejeweled.
Yes.
Like, that feels like what Bejeweled is. It has this, like, concept and little kind of, like, clever framing device and, like, tons of lines in the song relate back to that concept.
She really pushes the imagery hard.
Yes, and I think that she wasn't necessarily as good at that at this point, which also I just want to say, maybe it's because there's hindsight, because I know where we're going, but the lyrics to these first two albums, it's hard for me to not say that they're weak.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to not look at them and say that they're a little... Because this song is real sad and real depressive sounding.
Mm-hmm.
It is framed, obviously, as telling a child to never grow up because they're so innocent and everything's so nice for them right now, but it turns into Taylor just talking about how much her life sucks and how much she wishes that she didn't have to be an adult.
Yeah, how much greater she had it when she was just a little kid.
And I just want to say that if you're... Where we're going?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Like, the pop music at the time was very on the nose. As it should be. I mean, it's pop music. It's meant to be appealing to a mass audience who probably doesn't necessarily want to think super hard about what the song is about.
Right. I don't know if there's much more to say to that other than just this song is a yikes.
It's a
for
big
me.
yikes, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge yikes.
I do like it. Again, it's one of those instances where I find this to be cheesy, but in a way that I enjoy. I know it's on the nose, I know it's cheesy and sappy, and yet that's exactly what I'm looking for with this.
I think my main gripe with it is I really don't like, in this early era for Taylor, when she does the songs that are about... I know the quality of that release has been a little controversial amongst fans, but it does not have the problem where almost half the tracks are, like, forgettable.
Right.
Whether they're good or not, all of them, in their own way, are an interesting and creative idea.
They're unique, they can stand on their own.
Whereas this, Fearless and Speak Now, a lot of the B-sides, not so much.
Yeah. They feel like B-sides.
They feel like B-sides. And one thing that we'll probably have to start addressing a little bit is the difference in how singles and albums are released and marketed. The sparks fly. I think that's really catchy.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. 6 singles. You would never get away with that now.
Right. Would be ours.
To how important singles were.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't... This is like really during the iTunes era.
Yes.
I think. And people were mostly just buying single songs. Like,
correct.
I would be surprised if, like, a lot of people who liked stuff off this album even have listened to the whole thing.
I didn't.
Yeah.
When I first heard it back in high school, I did exactly that. I bought the individual songs that I enjoyed.
Right.
Which were, a lot of them were the singles.
Yeah, and I mean, now it's completely different. Like, fans want...
Taylor really dives in her romances.
Maybe at times when she shouldn't.
Yeah.
But who am I to judge?
You know, she was also, like, really young. That'll happen.
Yeah, I can't say a lot about ours because I did not listen to it. Because I didn't listen to the deluxe edition.
Yeah, but it did become a single, so I think it is worth mentioning. And it got a music video.
Yeah.
I think it won some awards or something.
Fine, I'll listen to it.
You don't have to listen to any of the other deluxe edition songs. I don't think any of them are particularly noteworthy.
Yeah.
On a deeper level, that's not super there for me. I think that we'll experience better stuff even on the very next album with Red.
I agree. I don't have very strong feelings about it. I think that it's definitely below a 5 out of 10 for me. And I think you could probably skip this one.
Yeah.
It's another Dear John song. I mean, technically it's like the first Dear John song because it's called Dear John.
It's the first Dear John song, but it's also the second because Back to December is on the album first.
Oh, sure.
Back to December is the 3rd track, and Dear John is the 5th track.
Yeah. So, the lyrics of Dear John are definitely the strongest on the album. She really paints a picture of the relationship. You can tell that All Too Well is on the horizon. It's a very similar song.
It's a brewin'.
It's brewin'. The song is also like 7 minutes long.
All of her John songs are really long. She's got a lot to say.
Yeah.
I think, I said before that there are some songs on the album that I think are good and I still enjoy to this day outside of the album. Dear John is one of them.
Yeah, and also, not even just the lyrics and the vocals, it's also got that sweet guitar part that's just like, da!
Yeah.
It's really good.
I also love how, like, it is, like, ballady.
It's, know? Yeah, it's a ballad.
She's, like, belting it out.
She's belting it. One thing I will say is that the melody, particularly in the verse, is just a really well-written pop melody. Like, it starts in a lower place, it has this motif that's running through it the whole time, and it has this big kind of arc gesture up to the same register that she sings the chorus in. It's like the perfect lead-in. Mm-hmm. And I think it really speaks to what a talented songwriter Taylor Swift was even at that time when she was like literally only 20. And if any song could advocate for her songwriting chops, I think it would be this one.
Yes, I agree.
Because it does feel a level, like it has a level of maturity.
Like there's maturity there. You can tell that she's grown. She's seen some shit.
Yeah.
She's
speaking truth to power.
She's speaking from her heart.
Yes.
She will not be silenced.
In fact, this one could have been a little more dramatic, and I probably would have just accepted it.
Yes.
But sure. Weirdly enough, the music of it is not that dramatic. It's
no, she relies heavily on her vocals.
Yeah, it's kind of mellow. Mm-hmm. It relies heavily on the vocals and the lyrics.
We were saying in the car when we were listening to this that it feels like she's kind of like half singing at times, like she's mostly just like kind of whimpering to herself about this thing that she experienced.
Yeah, you said in particular the melody in the beginning of the verse kind of sounds like she's just like talking.
It sounds a little lazy, but in a way that works.
Yeah.
Like intentionally lazy.
Right.
Casual, maybe.
Very casual, yeah. Right. Like she's just telling a story.
Yeah. She's just chatting to a friend.
Another really good one is Speak Now. Speak Now, I think, mostly... I won't even say that. I think Speak Now, both musically and conceptually, is really cute. I think it's good. It reminds me of Shrek. Yeah. And all things that remind me of Shrek must be good.
Yes. I can get behind that.
I think that the framing device of the wedding and trying to steal the guy back, I think that's a really good premise for a song. I think that the melody from the verse to the chorus, I think it carries over very well thematically. I think it's all cohesive. And it's also just like a really musically nice break from all the melodrama, because it's just like nice and boppy.
Yeah.
It's very bouncy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You can dance to it.
You can have a good little bop.
You can have yourself a little bop.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to discuss your thoughts and feelings on Enchanted?
Enchanted has a synth in it, and I think that's fun. It's probably the first synth of her career.
Yeah.
So far.
Enchanted, I just learned, was going to be the title of the whole album. And then her team decided that was not the move because it sounded too fairy tale-y, and they wanted to move away from fairy tales and what they did in Fearless with the fairy tale kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they sent her back to the drawing board, and she said, well, then I'm picking Speak Now because I'm speaking my truth.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't know that now.
I'm sorry.
But what I will say about Enchanted is that Enchanted is a bop, and it's really well written. It has what all pop songs should aspire to have, which it has two hooks. There's a hook in the pre-chorus, I was enchanted to meet you, and it has a hook in the chorus, this da 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 da.
The classic double hook.
Yeah, it's got the double hook.
Yeah, who doesn't love a double hook?
Who doesn't love a double hook? It also rocks. It's another one that rocks.
Mm-hmm. Your blue-eyed, perfect little angel, shouldn't be out at night with boys kind of situation.
And your hair is going all over the place, and you're kind of like moving your arms up and down like chicken wings.
You're wearing a lot of bracelets.
There's like tons of bracelets on your wrist.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like it could be in Zoe 101.
Yes.
In a way that I completely love.
Yes. It's perfect.
Yes. I did not like Enchanted when I first heard it, and I think it like very quickly won me over.
Yeah. As it should have. I think she really does that. even to this day, she doesn't have super sexual lyrics, even though she's like a 32-year-old woman. I also just think that maybe she pushed back on it a little too hard.
Yeah.
Like, there could have been a happy medium where she didn't, fully jump into the, like, a good comparison might be Katy Perry, who was possibly, some might say, hypersexualized in her music early on. Like, one of her first hits was I Kissed a Girl.
Right. And then she had the California Girls video where she squirted whipped cream out of her tits.
Right.
Which is iconic.
Oh, sure. No, I think musically it's fine. It definitely has, like, a good little beat to it, but too hard. And Better Than Revenge might be an example of that.
Yeah.
How it didn't work out so well.
I would say so. A little bit, because that is sort of a theme in the beginning of her career, that she's kind of a goody two-shoes, and she is sort of slut-shamey.
Yeah, so she made an intentional decision early on in her career that she was going to be not reliant on sexualizing herself or her songs or her music videos. She just wasn't going to do that. That was for other artists and not for her.
So innocent, and everything's so nice for them right now, but it turns into Taylor just talking about how much her life sucks and how much she wishes that she didn't have to be an adult.
Yeah, how much greater she had it when she was just a little kid.
And I just want to say that if you're an adult of only 20 years old and you're already talking like that, something is probably wrong in your life.
Something's amiss.
The music industry has probably done irreparable damage to you.
Yeah. Yikes. I don't know if there's much more to say to that other than just this song is a yikes.
It's a big yikes, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge yikes.
Some of the songs that we didn't touch on, I feel like we didn't touch on them for good reason. They're kind of forgettable.
Here's what I will say. The last thing that I want to say about the album in general is that while Fearless is way better, it has the same issue that Fearless does, which is that there's a few good tracks, but like almost half of it is just completely forgettable.
It's filler. You can tell that it's a little bit just trying to fill slots and make it a full-length album.
Right. You can say what you want about Midnights. I know the quality of that release has been a little controversial amongst fans, but it does not have the problem where almost half the tracks are, like, forgettable.
Right.
Whether they're good or not, all of them, in their own way, are an interesting and creative idea.
They're unique. They can stand on their own.
Whereas this Fearless and Speak Now, a lot of the B-sides, not so much.
Yeah. They feel like B-sides.
They feel like B-sides. And one thing that we'll probably have to start addressing a little bit is the difference in how singles and albums are released and marketed now as opposed to back then. So, like, back then, like, this album has, like, 6 singles. You would never get away with that now.
Right.
I think in a way that speaks to how important singles were.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't... This is, like, really during the iTunes era.
Yes.
I think. And people were mostly just buying single songs. Like,
correct.
I would be surprised if, like, a lot of people who liked stuff off this album even have listened to the whole thing.
I didn't.
Yeah.
When I first heard it back in high school, I did exactly that. I bought the individual songs that I enjoyed.
Right.
Which were, a lot of them were the singles.
Yeah, and I mean, now it's completely different. Like, fans want your whole album to be, like, all killer, no filler.
Mm-hmm.
And you release singles to market the album, but it's like, it's not for the album. Or it's for the album. Here, it feels like the singles are the album.
They are the album. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so overall, I give this positive ratings, but mostly it's because of the nostalgia for me. I think that, in terms of my actual technical interest, my desire to hear the lyrics on a deeper level, that's not super there for me. I think that we'll experience better stuff even on the very next album with Red.
I agree. I don't have very strong feelings about it. I think that it's definitely below a 5 out of 10 for me. And I think you could probably skip this one.
Yeah. It's fine. Just listen to Dear John and move on.
That's pretty good. Listen to Dear John and move on. Thank you all for listening to this installment of the Taylor Swift Retrospective. Good night. I wish you well. Kiss, kiss.